The church bells tolled, their haunting melody echoing through the quiet village. YN adjusted her white veil, her reflection shimmering in the old mirror of the bridal chamber. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She barely knew Jimin, a mysterious, alluring man who had swept her off her feet in a whirlwind romance. But her gut told her this was right. Or so she thought.
Are you ready, darling?
Jimin's smooth voice drifted through the door. YN's curled into a smile.
Almost. Just catching my breath.
The door creaked open slightly, revealing Jimin's chiseled features framed by dark, unruly hair. His piercing gray eyes held a depth that always seemed ancient, as if they carried lifetimes of secrets. He stepped inside, his presence commanding yet oddly soothing.
You look breathtaking.
He murmured, his fingers grazing her cheek. His sent shivers down her spine, a mix of warmth and something unidentifiable.
You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony.
YN. Her voice trembling slightly.
Superstition is no match for love.
He replied with a smirk.
Come, let's not keep destiny waiting.
The ceremony was a dream. Candles flickered, casting an ethereal glow over the gathering. When they exchanged vows, Jimin's gaze bored into YN's soul, his voice velvety and sincere.
I will cherish you for eternity.
He vowed, slipping a cold, silver ring onto her finger. Weeks passed, and their marriage seemed perfect. Jimin was attentive, passionate, and protective. But there were peculiarities YN couldn't ignore.
Why don't you ever eat with me?
She asked one night, setting down her fork. The candlelight danced in her questioning eyes. Jimin chuckled, brushing off the query.
I'm just not hungry. Watching you enjoy your meal is more satisfying.
His evasive answers didn't sit well. Then there was his aversion to sunlight, his uncanny ability to move silently, and the way his eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dark. One stormy evening, unable to quell her curiosity, YN decided to follow Jimin. He told her he needed to attend to some urgent business, leaving her alone in their sprawling estate. Cloaked in a heavy coat, she crept after him, the rain masking her footsteps. She trailed him to an abandoned chapel at the edge of the woods. Peeking through a cracked window, her heart stopped. Jimin stood before a stone altar, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. His voice was low, hypnotic. And then she saw it, a figure slumped on the floor, pale and lifeless. YN's breath hitched as Jimin's parted, revealing sharp, glistening fangs. He bent over the figure, his movements predatory and precise. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. A twig snapped beneath her foot. Jimin's head whipped around, his glowing eyes locking onto her. In an instant, he was outside, standing before her like a ghost.
YN.
He said, his tone both pleading and commanding.
You shouldn't have followed me.
Tears streamed down her face.
What are you?
She whispered, her voice trembling. Jimin's shoulders sagged, his face a mask of regret.
I'm sorry you had to find out this way.
He reached for her, but she recoiled.
Don't me.
She cried.
Are you a vampire?
He hesitated, then nodded.
Yes.
The weight of his confession down on her. And surreal.
You lied to me. You married me without telling me the truth.
I didn't want to lose you.
He said desperately.
I love you, YN. More than anything.
She shook her head, her voice breaking.
Love, how can I trust anything you say?
Jimin stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate.
Because my feelings are the only thing I've never lied about. I would give up everything for you.
Then why didn't you tell me?
She demanded.
Do you have any idea how betrayed I feel?
He lowered his gaze.
I've lived for centuries, Wai-hen. I've seen love turn into hate because of what I am. I couldn't bear the thought of you looking at me with fear.
Her heart warred with her mind. Despite the horror, she couldn't deny the bond they shared. But could she accept him for what he was?
I need time.
She said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Jimin nodded solemnly.
Take all the time you need. I'll wait for eternity if that's what it takes.
Days turned into weeks. Jimin gave her space but remained nearby, a silent guardian. One night, unable to sleep, Wai-hen found him in the library, staring out the window.
Do you still drink?
She asked hesitantly. He turned to her, his expression pained.
I've learned to survive on animal. It's not the same, but it's enough.
She took a deep breath.
Why didn't you just erase my memory? Isn't that something vampires can do?
He looked away.
I couldn't do that to you. Your mind, your choices, they're what make you, you. I'd rather lose you than take that away.
Her chest tightened. Despite everything, his love felt genuine.
I'm still angry,
She admitted.
but I can't ignore how much you mean to me.
Jimin stepped closer, his movements cautious.
Does this mean you'll give me a chance?
She hesitated, then nodded.
One chance, but no more secrets.
His face lit up, a rare, boyish smile gracing his.
No more secrets, I swear.
Their relationship wasn't easy. There were fears to confront, compromises to make. But through it all, their love grew stronger, defying the odds and the darkness. One evening, as they stood under the moonlit sky, Wai-hen looked into Jimin's eyes and saw not a monster, but the man she had fallen in love with.
Forever?
She asked softly, her hand intertwining with his. He smiled, his fangs barely visible.
Forever.
Her gaze softened, and she stepped closer, her free hand resting on his chest. For a moment, the world around them faded, leaving only the two of them bathed in silver moonlight. Wai-hen tilted her head, her breath mingling with his as she whispered.
Show me.
Jimin's eyes searched hers, a flicker of uncertainty quickly replaced by unrestrained longing. Gently, he cupped her face, his thumb brushing against her cheek. He leaned in, there. Meeting in A. That was both tender and consuming. His cool sent a spark coursing through her, and she felt herself melting into him, their connection deeper than words could express. When they finally broke apart, her cheeks were flushed, and her heart raced. Jimin rested his forehead against hers, his voice low and filled with emotion.
You are my everything, Wai-hen.
She smiled, her fingers tracing his jawline.
And you are mine.